We're 6 weeks into the fantasy season, right around the halfway mark for most dynasty leagues, and we've learned a lot about our team and where we stand in the race for a title. Or have we? Coach Dennis Allen was famous for once saying they are who we thought they were, and that's a question we should be asking about our players right now. Is our record truly indicative of who we thought they were? Or perhaps our record is lying to us. Perception meets reality on this week's episode of Dynasty Compass. Welcome to Dynasty Compass. I am your host, Jeff Blaylock, the other Jeff B. from Footballguys, where I contribute Dynasty and regular season content and Dynasty rankings. We are 6 weeks into the NFL season. Well, almost. I'm recording this on Saturday of week 6, so one of the week 6 games is in the books. That means some things I might say about players or their situations today may be different by the time that you listen or watch this. But we are at a point where we should have a sense of where our dynasty teams are and where they are headed. Hopefully, it's headed in the direction that we chose before the season started. Other teams, they may need a bit of a course correction, and still others, it's complicated. Now, if you're sitting at 5 or 1 or better, congratulations. You are contending just as you wanted to. Just don't coast. Navigate. Keep on top of those bye weeks. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Make sure you have the depth to absorb injuries and further bye weeks, and look for value add trades for players, for trade partners, for players that your trade partners are undervaluing, something we also talked about very recently. And even at 4-2, your team's probably in the hunt for a playoff spot or just right there, closer to contending than not. And if you're 1-5 or 0-6, my condolences, but hopefully that's where you wanted to be, that you were intending to go south, which is a total rebuild in our compass metaphor. Maybe you've got some aging veterans. It's time to trade them to needy teams, but wait until they're their neediest, and then they'll pay you more. You see a contender who's got some broken toys, a wide receiver or a quarterback who's on injured reserve, trade for those players. Park them on your IR and put them into your starting lineup next season. But most of us aren't those things. Most of us are in the 3-3 and 2-4 crowd, and this is where dynasty management really does get challenging. What do you do with a team that hasn't been good enough to contend or bad enough to rebuild? Well, the first step is to get your bearings. You have to know where you are before you can start steering. And that means we need to ask some questions. 6 questions, in fact, to get our bearings and assess our roster at midseason. The first of these questions I like to frame this way. Is the cavalry coming? Is help on the way that's already on your roster? Do you have players who are injured who may be coming back? A middling team, 3-3 certainly sounds middling. A middling team is better than its record if it is surviving without one of its cornerstones, or if its set and forgets are off to a slower start. Maybe the touchdowns just haven't been there. Maybe there was a drop or a big missed play, or there was a penalty that wiped out a big gain for your stars. Maybe your first-round picks are struggling to acclimate into the NFL. But if that cornerstone is returning, if that set and forget can shake this off, and if your rookie shines, then your roster's performance is going to improve and your record with it. You're still on course to the north, perennial contention, or to the west, win now. You just need the wind to blow a little stronger. On the other hand, if you are at full strength, you've had everybody on your roster and they are performing as they can perform, then those slow starts are features and not bugs, and you're probably nothing more than a middling team. 500 just might be your ceiling, and you're entering the East, which is chip and a chair territory. You're grasping for that last playoff spot. But the lesson is just don't blow it up. If the cavalry is coming, you wait for those reinforcements before you act. If you're already operating at a ceiling, now is the time to decide whether you want to try to contend for that last playoff spot as you are, or make some changes or change directions, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Our second question is, have I been unlucky? Which also is, have I been lucky? Well, look, win-loss records lie. They're based more on luck than we would like to admit. I mean, sometimes your high-scoring teams just run into higher-scoring teams. Sometimes your opponent started Rico Dowdle, who inexplicably went off for 200 yards. Sometimes their star players score touchdowns and yours get tackled at the 1-yard line. That has nothing to do with smart roster construction. It's just dumb luck. There are better measures of your roster's true strength and performance than straight up head-to-head records. Two in particular. Your record in games against the median and your all-play record. Let's start with the first one, games against the median. It's quite possible your league has this. If it doesn't, something to think about for next season. In a game against the median, you are rewarding the 6, or however many is half of your league size, the 6 highest scoring teams with a win. They beat the median score regardless of how they fared against their actual one-on-one opponent. Now, we remember from algebra, I should have said there would be some math involved today. I'm sorry if that triggered anybody, but we'll get through it together. We remember from algebra that the median is perfectly right in the middle. It's not the mean. It's not the average, because averages get skewed by really high or really low numbers. Let's take a running back who had 100 yards on 20 carries. If all you did was look at the box score, you would see a respectable 5 yards per carry for that running back. Well, what if he got 62 of those yards on one run? That means that he gained 38 yards on the other 19 carries, which is just 2 yards per carry. Not anywhere near as good as that average would suggest. His average is 5, but his median is 2. And the 2 yards per carry is much more indicative of this fictional running back's performance than his average of 5 yards per carry. So a team that consistently beats the median but loses its head-to-head matchups isn't a middling team at all. It's just unlucky. This year, my Scott Fishbowl team is a perfect example. Entering this week, my overall record was 6-4, very middle of the pack squad in the playoff hunt, but certainly not near the top of the league standings. And the reason is I'm 1-4 in head-to-head matchups, and I'm 5-0 against the median. I've been one of the highest scoring teams. I've just been unlucky enough to face a top 3 scoring team 4 times this season, and I've lost to all of them. And we can take this even a step further than a game against the median in what I would call an all-play record. All-play is what would happen if you played every team in the league head-to-head every week of the season. Now, very few leagues do this, probably because no one wants to go 0-11 or 0-13 in a week. So you may have to do some math, but it's pretty easy. You go through your league's weekly scores and add up how many teams you would have beaten had you played them, and how many would have beaten you. Then this should add up to one less than the total number of teams in your league. So there were 12 teams. You would play 11 of them. You're the 12th one, so 11 is what you're looking for. Then you add up all of those all-play wins and all those all-play losses for the week, and that tells you how you really stack up against the other teams. My Scott Fishbowl team, I mentioned, is 6-4 overall. They're 1-4 against head-to-head matchups. They're 5-0 against the median. And they are 40-15 in all play measurements. That's a lot better than 6-4. It's orders of magnitude better than 1-4. So my team is better. Maybe it's even much better than its win-loss record indicates. Now, variance Variance is going to do what variance does. Randomness is part of the game. That's what makes it fun. But if you're putting up points and you're still losing, that means your process is working. You've just been unlucky. And on the other hand, if you've been winning, but you're barely squeaking by because you've been lucky enough to play the lowest scoring teams, you're not faring well against the median, and you certainly are not faring well in all play, then your team is not as good as its record. So don't let bad luck convince you that you need to change direction. And don't let good luck convince you that your middling team is a contender. Luck has a way of evening out as the season goes along. Bad luck usually turns into better luck. Good luck often turns into not as good luck. Now, the third question that we need to ask at midseason relates to a little bit to the second one. You have got a good lineup in place, but it's still losing. And it's, am I making decisions for the right reasons? When it comes to setting a starting lineup, we have to pick players that we think are going to do better than the ones on our bench. And we've all lost fantasy games that we would have won if we just started this guy instead of that guy. Every manager benches a player who goes off now and then. Every manager starts a player who gets shut down by an opposing defense. That's not bad management. That's just football. You weren't wrong. Your decision wasn't wrong. It was just upended by unforeseen and unforeseeable game happenings. That's why the outcome of your choice, whether this guy scored more than that guy, is less important than why you made the choice in the first place. Were you following usage trends and game scripts and matchup data and past performance and injury luck? Or are you chasing what happened last week in the box score? I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that anybody who started Trey Tucker in place of Jamar Chase back in, I think it was week 3, when Tucker scored 40 PPR points and Chase scored 10, would have crowed about it. But that wasn't a good call. It was a lucky one, a random lucky outcome. It would be a terrible decision most of the time. Benching a cornerstone player for some team's backup wide receiver is going to get you beat far, far more often than it's going to win for you. If you started Chase and watched Tucker score 40 points from your bench, your reasoning was probably sound. It was probably the right decision to make. You just were unlucky. If your reasoning is sound, results will normalize. If your decision-making process is random, that's when the losses are really going to keep piling up. Even if you get it right every once in a while, you're going to get it wrong a lot more often. So you want to trust your process. Things that may look like wrong turns simply don't mean that you're lost. You're just human. That's all part of navigating your way through obstacles. Sometimes you will make a wrong turn. You're not lost. You just made the wrong turn. The fourth question that I like to ask at midseason is, have my assumptions aged well? We all enter the season with what we think our players are going to do and what's going to happen. We now have 6 weeks of real data to test those preseason priors. Are they, our players, are they who we thought they were? Now, many of us, myself included, and many of us in the fantasy industry, peg Jameson Williams as being headed for a breakout year. Instead, he enters week 6 as the wide receiver 51 in PPR scoring. So he's not even a wide receiver 4 from a fantasy perspective. He's eminently benchable just based upon where he has been performing so far this season. Now, if you, like me, thought he was going to break out, you've learned that at this point he's just broke. Can he turn it around? I'm sure. He has the talent. He's on a potent offense. He's a big play waiting to happen. But will he? Well, not so far. Our wide receiver 2 assumption has been hit with his wide receiver 5 performance. Now, if that only happens to one player, maybe 2 players on your roster, we can get by. We can generally absorb something like that. But if it's happened to several, especially to our cornerstones, even a roster that we assumed was firmly fixed in the North, perennial contention, is actually drifting east into chip and a chair territory. Now, likewise, we may have some players that have overperformed our expectations, and then thus may be time to adjust our starting lineup, bump some of these guys up a notch from next man up into set and forget starters, or from developing talent into next man up. If someone that you've pegged as a backup wide receiver is consistently putting up 14 to 20 fantasy points and a set and forget has been putting up 6, that's when it might be time to bench your star player, at least until he returns to his form or the backup returns to his. I mean, Dynasty isn't about being right in August. It's about updating your map faster than the rest of your league can adapt to theirs. Reassessing your assumptions is not second-guessing yourself. It's navigating obstacles. That's what we need to do to get to where it is we're trying to go. Now, our fifth question comes in two different flavors, and that depends on whether they are who we thought they were. The first question goes along those lines. If we've assessed our team and we find out that they are who we thought they were, then we can look into what we need to stay on course. We should not make panic trades. We shouldn't trade for the sake of trading. We shouldn't be rearranging the patio furniture by swapping our bench players around. If we're going to make a move, let's make it count. But remember that it's going to cost us now and potentially later. Now, if we're going west, we are in the win now mode. The future is now. We will not be sacrificing our future if we're trying to win now. In fact, we're willing to do that. We're going all in. We are going for it now. Spend your draft capital. Trade away a developing talent for a producing vet. Bring in a rental, a veteran with 1 or maybe 2 productive seasons left. Whatever will get you over the top, you need to get that. You're not sacrificing your future because you are already willing to do that to get what you need right now. That's if you're going west in win now mode. If you're going north, our true goal, a perennial contender year after year after year, we're always looking for ways to bolster our roster now and in the future. If adding a player meaningfully raises our championship odds, that's the time to spend a little draft capital, but don't empty the bank, because this is not win at all costs. This is win and continue contending. Do not mistake west for north. Do not mistake going all in to win now for building a perennial contender. West is a one-shot, all-or-nothing approach to winning right now, and then that championship window may start to close. It may close fast. It may slam shut. But north means your championship window is open now and for years to come. And so if you are going that direction, that's when you look to see, is there something I can get where I'm not sacrificing my future? Something that will make me a better contender now that doesn't hurt my ability to be a contender later. If we're going to the East, then we acknowledge that we're still several players away from being a true contender. We have a roster that's good enough to make the playoffs. It's not good enough to contend. It's not bad enough to rebuild. In that case, we do not want to be burning our draft picks for short-term value. We need more than just a player that we can get now. We need to be judicious about bringing in veteran players, especially players I consider to be rentals that may have at best 1 or 2 more seasons left. Your title chances are already fairly low as it is, even if you make the playoffs. So adding an aging vet probably doesn't meaningfully change that for you, but it could hurt you in the future. Now, the exception might be if you're solving some form of positional scarcity, like you've had some injuries in the running backs. They're not coming back this season. This is an opportunity to replace the next man up with a set and forget. That's the kind of trade that you might want to be making here. But otherwise, I think you want to play wait and see. That's fine here if you are in the East, in what I like to think of in a poker analogy, the chip in a chair situation. It's an acknowledgement that you need more than you can afford, and you want patience here and not panic. go for that playoff spot. Once you're in the tournament, anything can happen. I have won championships as the 6th seed before. I've also lost in the first round a lot as the 6th seed. So don't get your hopes up too high. There's always a chance. But let's understand that we're not in win now mode. We are waiting and see if perhaps we can win this year, but we are building towards something better in the future. And South is the easiest of them all. Due South is a rebuild. You should be selling rentals, not buying them. You should be selling aging veterans, not buying them. Every trade that you make, regardless of which direction you're going, needs to make you better and closer to that heading, not feel better just for this particular week. We're not making moves for the sake of making moves. We are making moves to make us better. The second part of this question 5, the first part was, can I get what I need without sacrificing the future? That's if my roster is indeed who I thought they were. If they are not who I thought they were, the question becomes, should I change my direction? Am I going to get to my destination with who I have, or do I need to be looking to a different part of the compass? Maybe I thought I was a win now team that was headed to the west, but I'm 2-4. There's no cavalry coming, and my stars are fading. I can wait and see, which tacks me into an easterly direction, or I can acknowledge that I need a mini rebuild and turn south and do that this season. Maybe I thought I was rebuilding and headed south, but I'm 4-2. I've got a star that's coming back who's missed the season so far, and my rookies are ahead of schedule. We can continue to wait and see and go towards the east. Going west isn't really wise because I don't think we're close to win now, but we might be closer to north, perennial contention, than we think. And so we should be looking ahead again at what we're going to be building in the future. We might be able to take our shot now, but let's not squander our future in a fairly low probability attempt to win now. If we're going north, if we're a perennial contender, but we're 3-3, and our starters are struggling, and our youth is not developing, this indeed is when wait and see comes into play. We could easily make a mistake here because we are basing our judgments off of a record that probably isn't indicative of our talent level, but it is what our record is going to be. So we can join the other managers who are gathering in the East, or we could bring in some additional firepower and try to go west. But if we have been a perennial contender and this is just not our year, my inclination is never to blow that up. It's just to weather the storm and come back next season with a stronger roster and better pieces in place. And we don't do that by breaking things up here in the middle of a season. And finally, if we were headed in the East and we are 4-2 or 3-3 and 2-4, then we're right. South is an option, but it's hard to throw in the towel when you are tied for a last playoff spot. If you can get what you need without sacrificing your future, you can begin a turn toward the north. Going west into win now territory is reckless. But you might be closer than your record indicates if the cavalry is coming, if you've been unlucky, your players' performances are exceeding your assumptions. Whatever choice you make has to be looked at through the lens not only of this season, but future seasons. What can I do now to increase my chances of winning, but not necessarily at the cost of hurting my chances of winning later, unless I am truly in win now mode, or I want to push all my chips in and commit to that as my strategy for the rest of the season. And that really brings us then to our sixth and final question, which is, am I managing strategically or emotionally? Is it my strategy that's guiding my decisions, or is it my emotions? Losing streaks make us reactive. It becomes harder to trust our process when the results don't match. We start second guessing ourselves. But a good process is going to prevail over lucky guesses over the long haul. And that's really what Dynasty is about. Unlike redraft, we are trying to win in the long haul in addition to now. We're looking for perennial contention. We are looking to go north in our compass metaphor. We need to be putting our strategy in front of our emotion. And likewise, winning streaks make us overconfident. If you're more lucky than good, that luck is probably going to run out. And contrary to the hackneyed saying, it is actually better to be good than lucky. It's even better to be good and lucky. But if I had to choose between the two, I'd actually rather be good. Because if you make moves based on luck, you may actually wind up setting yourself back multiple seasons, because that high of winning and that dream that you're right there when you really aren't is going to overwhelm the reality of your roster's actual strength. So before you bench a starter for a flyer, before you trade away your draft capital or developing talent, before you bring in a rental, before you change your strategic directions, you need to ask yourself, am I doing this for strategic reasons, or am I doing it emotionally? Am I managing strategically or emotionally? Because strategy gets you places, and emotion gets you lost. So here at midseason, we've been talking about getting our bearings. We check those bearings by asking questions to learn if indeed our team is who we thought they were. Very quickly, those questions are, is the cavalry coming? Have I been lucky? Have I been unlucky? Am I making decisions for the right reasons? Have my assumptions aged well? Either, can I get what I need without sacrificing the future, or should I change my direction? And finally, am I managing strategically or emotionally? If you can answer these questions honestly, then your compass will tell you the truth, even when your record lies. That's our episode for this week. Thank you so much for subscribing, for following, for liking, for sharing, for giving us reviews. Please spread the word about us. We'd love to be able to help dynasty managers navigate their way through these complex waters to get to their ultimate destination, which is perennial contention. Next week, we're going to talk about the currency of the realm, draft capital, how to value it, when to spend it, how to use it to reshape your direction. But until then, keep your bearings, keep navigating with purpose, keep navigating with intention and with strategy. And we'll see you next week on Dynasty Compass.